writer in Hollywood or those kind of things. And they get to about 50 and they say, I'm not really going to make it. Now what I'm going to do? And by the way, that's about when the parents die, so the subsidy stops, and it's really a problem. There is this stress on perfection and having it all. You're supposed to be, Dr. Ruth in the bedroom and Donald Trump in the boardroom. And, I don't know who you are, but I find 24 hours a day doesn't let me do all those things all the time. And we'll come back and talk about that and how you manage it. And there are some wonderful success models that gloss over the flaws. If I think of Rupert Murdoch, John Corzine, can we imagine Lady Gaga, Liana Hans? Would you really like to be some of these people that have been written up as great successes? And even worse, would you want your kids to be them? I can't imagine if one of my daughters said, I really want to model myself on Lady Gaga. The two that went to the Harvard Business School have done okay, but the one has wound up being a family counselor. We interviewed about 150 people. They were high achievers in multiple arenas. They seemed to care about others, which was probably one of our criteria. Their success in life make a difference to many others. They weren't just about me. I didn't interview Donald Trump. They seemed to keep going and growing. And they were unique. We interviewed everybody from investment bankers to a cleaning woman that had come probably not originally as an illegal immigrant, and now has a firm with about 50 people that work for her and is really amazingly happy, and all her kids are graduating from college. And so it's a very fascinating group of people. But mostly what you saw is people that were quite satisfied, that they felt good about themselves and good about their life. So, I could criticize this as a sociological study because these are probably the criteria we chose for success, not something that was given to us by deep research. And what we saw in these people is they seized opportunities that's presented. They largely avoided regrets. Now, my co-author, Laura, and I argued a lot about, can you live a life without regrets? And it was, yes, we can, no, we can't. Yes, a very intelligent argument. But what we discovered is we were talking about different things. She was talking about consequences, and I was talking about sort of process. Things go wrong. But if you acted honest to yourself, if things go wrong, it's pretty hard to have a regret. He said, I acted on the best information. Regrets come when you kid yourself. One of the titles in the Howard's Gift book is Don't Cheat at Solitaire. We also found that people that really enjoyed the here and now. They weren't always putting off. When we interviewed one of them, ice cream arrived at the office. He stopped the interview and he says, you'll wait, the ice cream will melt. Let's have ice cream now. And that was a very important lesson for us. And what we discovered is a landscape of satisfaction. If you ask people why they succeeded, they give you the same BS. It's in Franklin, it's in Covey, it's in a whole bunch of these books. But what we did is we asked people, tell us about successes in your life, rather than tell us why you succeeded. And it was a very interesting thing. We saw, obviously, achievement. What have you done against goals that others are also striving for? That's money, power, fame. There are lots of forms of achievement, and you can't have them all, by the way. Many of my richest friends are not known. As one said, he'd pay $250,000 to get off the Forbes list. I think that Trump pays a lot to get on it. There's significance. Have you had a positive impact on the people you care about? There's happiness. How do you feel about yourself in your life? Are you content? And then there's legacy. Have you done something or is it built upon? Now, one of the things that's very clear is these are uncorrelated. You can achieve without being happy, right? Marilyn Monroe, Ernest Hemingway probably demonstrated that conclusively. Can you be significant without achievement? Well, my grandfather was never more than an assistant postmaster in a small town in Utah. He was a Silver Beaver Scout, which is the highest award in scouting. He taught me a lot about conservation and love for the land. I think he was very significant in many people's lives. Can you be happy without achieving? Just go to Aspen. How many parents told their kids, I've worked so hard, I want you to be happy? They go out to Aspen, meet their kids and say, what the hell are you doing? And they said, you told us to be happy, Dad. We're happy. What's your problem? I'm a Trustafarian. That's a great religion. Now, legacy I was having trouble with. until I thought about Karl Marx. He certainly wasn't known in his lifetime. He was mean and abusive to his family. He was a drunkard, which generally somewhat goes with unhappiness, and yet he left a big legacy, whether for good or bad. So all these are uncorrelated, and getting one doesn't get you the other, and we'll come back to that. And part of the reason they're quite different. Happiness is really about me and now. You don't make other people happy. You make yourself happy, and you are happy, and you don't say, oh, I'll be happy in the future. You say, am I happy now? Whereas legacy, I'm sorry, Bill Clinton, you don't define your own legacy. Other people define your legacy, and it's about your impact on the future. Now, achievement is sort of funny. Who do I compare myself to? You know, I have a friend who feels not very wealthy because Bill Gates has 1,000 times as much money. I point out that $65 million would satisfy many people. But as long as he compares himself to Bill Gates, he can make himself really quite miserable. And by the way, that's also led his children to think that unless they make $1 billion, they're not a success, which has led them to some very interesting behavior. And significance is another thing. You have to say, yeah, I want to help other people, but who do I want to help? Bill Gates can only give $10 a person to everyone on Earth. He has to choose who to help. And that's a very important choice. It's both an external choice and an internal choice. Who do I care about, and what do I want to do for them? Now, when you think about them, they're really complicated. Achievement is, there's a time dimension to it. Is it about the past? Is it about the present or the future? If you think about the impact, is it on me or is it on other people? You know, I could develop things that are achievement that are about me alone, or I can build a system where other people are involved. They're emotional drivers. There's some very positive drivers: mastery, recognition, pride. But there are Donald Trumps: envy, greed, and fear. These are all drivers toward achievement. But if they're not positive, very often they're driven by looking outside and saying, I've got to compete, and you can always compete with somebody who will make you feel bad. And then there's the context. You know, it's the Wayne Gretzky, I got to skate to where the puck will be, not to where it is now. So there's a little thing called values here. You know, as one of our daughters said at one of my wife's round numbers birthday, mirror, mirror on the wall, I'm like my mother after all. And she was somewhat upset in saying it, but I can hear my father speaking very often when I'm talking. So all this stuff is complicated. Now, when we look at it, you know, each of these have twins, right? You can think about contentment and fulfillment and happiness, or laziness and gluttony. They both can lead you to somewhat be happy. You can think about envy and greed driving you to achievement, or you can think about recognition, pride, and mastery. You can think about fairness, generosity, and caring, which is external, or you can think, a few of us have been on boards where power and self-aggrandizement leads people to, quote, be significant outside. And then even in legacy, there's altruism and generative desires, or there's the fear of death and need for control. You know, I know somebody that's written 1,000-year trust, because he really does, you know, trust should be named mistrust. If you trusted your kids, you wouldn't put it in trust. But to do it for 1,000 years, I unkindly pointed out that William the Conqueror still has 50-something years to run, and I'm sure he's seen everything. But when you look at these, does contentment and fulfillment help you to achieve? Not really. You know, certain neuroses help you to achieve. Does fairness, generosity, and caring help you in the competitive battle? It actually isn't even help you be happy, right? Because when somebody else is miserable, you're miserable. If you think about altruism, those who leave room for other people's success, it's an absolute requirement for the creating legacy, but it also will probably diminish your own achievement because you're letting other people be recognized, where there are many people, and you see it all the time in entrepreneurship, where the need to be the boss prevents you from actually developing something that will endure. So these are complex. Most human beings, except for Donald Trump, have most of these emotions. And because we have complex emotions, we're tired, we're torn. We're tugged in different directions. This one helps me achieve on this dimension, but we all want them. because we want all of these kinds of success. And this is part of the challenge I think we all face is I don't know very many people that don't want to have some measure of success on all of these dimensions. So one thing is find your passion, that we'll find somehow something that in achievement will find significant happiness and leave our legacy. The only problem, it doesn't work because one activity rarely has it all. If you find love at the office, you can get yourself sued. And there's certainly different constituencies, different judgments. When somebody says to their children, I'm working so hard, I'm doing it all for you, my children, what does the kid generally think? Bullshit, Dad. You're doing this for your own ego. And yeah, it's really nice. I'm really glad that you're giving me some money, but you're not doing your work for me. It's for you. I mean, it requires different skills. If you try and be CEO at home, the chief operating officer generally has something to say about it. At least that's been my experience, very subtly. And there's often collateral damage because if you focus on only one thing, you're highly likely to forget some other things. And this is a problem. So I just remind you of this poor guy. There's another approach, which is sequential success. We'll achieve. In achievement, after we achieve, we'll find significance. After we find significance, we'll find happiness. And then our legacy will be left when we die. That doesn't work either. There's a lot of books, generally sold to YPO members, about from success to significance, halftime. I can go through the titles. They don't work for a very simple reason. When is enough to move on? If you say, when have I achieved enough? Do you think any of us want to ever say, I'll never achieve again? I don't know many, people, even if they never played golf in their life, they retire and go to Florida and they got to become a champion golfer. Unlikely to happen if you didn't start it at 16. It's like being a skier. If you didn't learn to ski before you develop common sense, you'll never be a great skier. Because what's enough for now is certainly not enough for your life in most of these areas. So the notion I'll do something and then at the next stage I'll pass on and I'll focus. This is good for ADHD people because it says I'll focus on one thing and then I'll achieve it and then I can move on. The only trouble is the decision to move on is really tough. And there's also the problem is that you can always maximize. I was a mathematician when I was young. I don't remember how to do a Riemann-Stieltjes integral, but I do remember that there's no largest integer. You can always want to add one to anything. And if you're successful at something, often you say, well, I just want a little more. And it's a very interesting problem of how do you not maximize. And we do have continuing emotional needs. As I say, I don't think you can ever leave the need for achievement. When is it that you want to say, I've done enough for everyone else, it's now about me. I just want to be happy myself. I find that it's actually harder with kids. My youngest